Hi, my name's Freese, and I'm back again making another video for Finest Hour. This time it's for a Longines COSD. Chris has given me this watch to undertake a very similar process to the watches that we've done before in these videos. That is to do a very sympathetic restoration of the watch and to share that story with you as we go through it here at my workshop. So we'll go straight over to our bench now and we'll make a start. Okay, so we're at my bench now. Before I start to take this watch apart, I'll just quickly go through some of the historical details that are relating to this watch. So originally the tuna can variant of these rare timepieces was thought to have been produced for British World War II Special Forces and paratroopers for use during the D-Day in Operation Market Garden. However, this long established theory now seems unlikely. It's now believed they have been designed and issued for use by specialist underwater demolition teams. The term COSD that these watches are known by stands for Combined Operations Stores Depot, and the Combined Operations Command was established in 1940 by Winston Churchill immediately after the evacuation of Dunkirk. Its sole objective was to undertake offensive operations against the enemy via a combination of land, sea and air forces. Intriguingly though, very little is known for certain about these watches and their specific history, and their purpose still to this day remains unclear. However, what we can be sure of is they're exceptionally rare and they're very difficult to find. I haven't seen one before, so I certainly would concur on that point that these are certainly a rarity. The example to be serviced here features a fabulous original dial and a handset with stainless steel Denison case. Interestingly, the watch was later reissued to British Overseas Airways Corporation personnel, and this is confirmed by the markings on the reverse of the case back, which I'll show you later in the video. So now that we've been through those details, let's start to take the watch apart and I can assess what we need to do and tell you a bit more about the repair that we've got ahead of us. Okay, so here we can see the Longines 12.6N movement, and what I've done so far is to take the aftermarket bracelet off. This was a Fixer Flex bracelet. These are very popular in the 70s and 80s, and you do see a lot of them fitted to watches, but they're not really of any value and they don't add any value to the history of this watch, so that we've taken that off. Obviously we've got the case back off here as well, and we can now see this movement, the Longines movement. These movements are of very high quality, and the earlier Longines movements are also very collectible as well. This watch itself is especially collectible just because of its rarity. You don't see very many of these, and so it is certainly a collectible item. So in terms of work that I've got to do here, the next stage for me is to remove the movement and the dial hands, and then disassemble the movement and check all of the individual components prior to going in the cleaning machine. In terms of cosmetic work, with the Finest Hour and with Chris's meticulous approach, he likes to leave any kind of dirt or debris on the case, as it tells part of the history of the watch. So I won't be cleaning this case up. My focus is going to be primarily on making sure that the movement is completely clean and functioning correctly. The crown is showing a slight gap between the case and the crown itself. It seems to stick out a little bit, and this is something that I can resolve by shortening the stem slightly. The stem is the part that the crown is fitted onto. So I'll be looking at that as part of the repair, and with any luck I'll be able to do that. The only possibility is that the crown may in some way not want to be parted from the stem. We'll just need to take a look, but I'm quite optimistic that that adjustment can be quite easily achieved. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to take the movements apart, and I'll come back to you when I've done that to show you some more details of the movement. So here we have the movement partially disassembled, and I thought this would be a good point to stop the repair and just to add a new section into the video and to show you some of the distinguishing parts of the 12.68N caliber movement, because these movements really were very well made. So to start with the screws. These screws are blued screws, and this day and age you often get blued screws on watch movements that have been chemically blued. So the chemical blue process just involves dipping the screws into a chemical to change the colour of the surface of the metal. But the traditional way of bluing screws is to heat them up, and as the steel changed temperature, so did the colour of the material. I've noticed from these screws that you get a very slight difference, a bit of variation in the tone. So some of them are slightly more purple, some of them are slightly more blue. And the charming thing about this is it means that all these screws have been sort of hand blued, as it were. And so you really are seeing quite a high degree of hand working in this particular movement, and a lot of very traditional watchmaking features. The other thing to notice is that we have a separate bridge for the escape wheel here, which is very nicely shaped. It has a very nice organic shape to it, which is most attractive, and also a beveled edge as well, all the way around. You have frosted finish on all the plates, and it's a very attractive movement indeed. You also notice that we have the train wheels here. The centre wheel is still in position at the moment. So we have third, fourth, and escape wheel in this area, and this is the barrel bridge. The barrel bridge has a spring on it for the central seconds pinion, and the spring itself is a nice piece of work. It's a very thick and substantial spring. Quite often when I repair watches with a central seconds pinion like this, the spring mechanism, or the spring rather, is just a very, very thin piece of metal. But these have been made very well, and the use of lots of material, as it were, making things with nice thick plates and with a nice thick spring, just makes for a movement with better longevity, a movement that lasts longer, and it's certainly a pleasure to repair even today, this far ahead in time from when this movement was produced. So our next job is to complete the disassembly of the movement, to take the keyless out, to take the centre wheel out, and to take the pallets out that are underneath this balance wheel. And when I've done all of that, we'll get this movement into the cleaning machine, get all the parts completely clean, ready for reassembly. Okay, so I've now got the movement back into the case, and as you'll see, it has come up really well. You can see how bright the movement looks. Quite often when a watch movement is serviced, the cleaning fluids that are used in the cleaning machine will have a detrimental effect to the plating on the plates. And you can tell from the colour of these plates that this movement has not been through a watch cleaning machine that many times, and it's really nice to see a watch in this condition. It does mean that it hasn't had a lot of attention in the past and has been preserved. There's some very tiny spots of corrosion on the ratchet wheel and the crown wheel, but I think that this is just part of the age of the watch, of course, and it is what we'd describe as a three-piece case with a back that just clips on. So this is to be expected, and certainly it is consistent with the general condition of the case itself. So it's nice to see that. So it's great to have this movement all back into one piece. One last thing I was going to mention about the movements, when I was fitting the dial, I thought I should tell you there are actually 3 places on this movement for securing the dial. So the dial has 3 dial feet. This is very unusual. Most watches only have 2, and it's once again testament to the quality that Longines used to set themselves, when they were involved in watchmaking during this period. You'll also notice that I have adjusted the length of the stem in order to get the crown closer to the case, as Chris at Finest Hour requested. So it's been nice to do that, which certainly improved the appearance of the watch without doing anything to take away from its originality. So I'm really pleased with how this has come out. When I put the movement onto a timing machine to check it, noted that the amplitude is 280 degrees. It's very healthy. And the amplitude is a measurement of the angle that this balance wheel here is swinging between. So it goes from one point to another, like this. And the measurement between those 2 points is 280 degrees, which is very healthy. In fact, that's the sort of measurement that you would expect to get from a brand new Swiss movement, which once again, tells you a lot about the overall quality. And obviously able to adjust the regulation on this one with the micro regulator here, which sits on top of the balance cock, which has a very nice polished finish, which is also, a good sign of a quality movement. So yeah, really happy with the way this one's gone, and very pleased with the outcome. We've got a watch movement that's running really well, and the watch is now going to keep a very good time. I've turned the watch over now, and then I can show you the dial on the hands and the look of the watch from the front. As you can see, it really hasn't changed very much. I've left the case alone, left the crystal alone. The only visual change you can see really is where I've adjusted the crown to get the crown closer to the case. And I certainly feel this improves the aesthetics of the watch, and the closer gap between the crown and the case is much improved. It really is, a very attractive watch with a lot of history to it, and to keep the watch in its original condition like this, it's quite a special thing to do. So I'm pleased that although the movement is certainly 100% clean and running very well, we still have the original appearance from this side. So it's quite a result really, and we're very pleased and proud to be able to work on this watch.